because the oceans are rising. Do you realize that?
Look, so what can we do? You've mentioned, putting some grain wall. I don't know what that means, but what else can we do?
The first thing we have to do is start with our minds. Because every action, even an utterance, will start in the mind, and we have to come into a realization that we have abused the systems of this earth, the wonderful creation of this earth, the beautiful balances, the beautiful harmonies of nature. We have totally abused it, and it is now reacting. And this reaction right now is very bad. Ban Ki-moon, again, if I can quote him, said that this is the first generation that is feeling the effects of climate change, but it is the only generation that can prevent it turning into an unstoppable, catastrophic scenarios. Like I was saying a little bit earlier, the sea rising and inundating our coast.
Okay, let's quickly go back to Abuja for Mr. Adejuwon's final moment with us. If we get to the table, to talk about this climate change issues, what do you think Nigeria should take on as tailored to our own climate change needs?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think I need to clarify some issues there. Like I said, 3 bodies, 3 conference of parties will hold in Marrakesh. The first is the Conference of Parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. The second one is the Conference of Parties, serving as the meetings of parties to the Kyoto Protocol. Then the first Conference of Parties meeting as the Paris Agreement. On Paris Agreement will also, they will also be meeting. This does not, we are not precluded from, participating in some of the discussions that are going to take place during the COP that is coming up in Marrakesh. The only thing is that when the CMA1 is meeting and you are not a party to it, then, sometimes you can be admitted as an observer, to the discussion, or sometimes you may not be allowed into, the venue where discussions are taking place, or where the COP is meeting finally to take its decision. I think I need to clarify about this. Essentially, the official meeting of the parties, to the Paris Agreement, we take decision that we guide the implementation of the agreement. So, what is on the table will be how do we operationalize the agreement. Although it has taken too long to, to come to this Paris Agreement, because it was supposed to have come into existence about a few years ago in Copenhagen. So, but at the same time, there are still some issues that have not been totally resolved, and of course, which are necessary to come even after the agreement must have entered into force. And like I said, operationalization of the agreement is the first one. How do we operationalize it? How do we determine the procedure and guideline for the transparency, regime? Whatever each and every party to the convention is doing, every party to the agreement is doing, how do we ensure that they are transparently reporting it to the meeting of Paris Agreement? Then, what forms of communication, information, what form of information is going to be included in our in our INDC or in INDC coming from parties? They will still have to, continue to discuss this kind of issues. Then again, they want to they may consider how do we facilitate, how would the convention, how would the agreement facilitate its implementation by the parties? What form of financial architecture is going to be available to finance this, the agreement? Who is going to provide what? especially when it comes to the conditional implementation of some NDC content, because the conditional has to do with, if you give me this, I am going to do much more than what I can do, which we refer to as unconditional. So that is very, 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 very critical. Then provision of finance, like I said, provision of technology, provision of, capacity building towards implementation of agreement. These are issues that are going to take place, during the Marrakesh. And again, the Paris Agreement is not legally binding, but at the same time, there will be a need to, to discuss how to promote compliance, including putting compliance procedure in place. How do we ensure that people are complying with, their NDC implementation? These are issues that are going to be discussed. They are still going to be undergoing discussion and negotiation between now and 2020, when the Paris Agreement implementation will commence. For Nigeria, what we need to do presently is just to, first of all, ratify the Paris Agreement. This does not stop us from carrying out our activities that we have listed in the INDC that we submitted, to the Conference of Parties to the, United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. We can, start carrying out these activities, and see whether we can even do more than what we said we could do under the unconditional circumstances, which is 20% of reduction of greenhouse gas emission from various activities like energy production, energy efficiency, climate smart practice of climate smart agriculture, and so on and so forth. These are things that we have to look at now, and we can by now start to implement, the agreement. No matter how weak, or no matter how weak people may consider the agreement, is still a framework through which the world can, tackle the challenges of climate change. And good enough, the INDC, which constitute the activities that are going to be implemented, by each and individual parties to the agreement, can be reviewed every five years and see whether they are doing whether they are trying to reach their target or not. And if you think you can do more within that 5 years, you can communicate such information, to the Conference of Parties meeting as on Paris Agreement.
Thank you so much, Dr. Samuel Adejare. In closing, Mr. Majakodumi, what you want to leave with us?
Wow, we're just overjoyed that, finally the world has decided, hey, there's a problem. Unfortunately, the joy is mixed with a lot of apprehension, and in my particular case, as a Nigerian, considerable amount of embarrassment. We're overjoyed. The apprehension is that there's still a refusal to accept the potential enormity of the problem. That same United Nations International Panel for Climate Change has actually just sent out a memo 3 days ago saying that even these agreements of decarbonizing the atmosphere, remember the problem is overcarbonization, this agreement of decarbonizing the atmosphere, it's too small. And that's one of the things they're going to be discussing in Marrakesh. That we need to do a lot more decarbonizing, otherwise we're going to push it to, you see, there's a certain level of overheating of this perfect, wonderful system of the creation, which will now trigger off all types of nonsense. And that's why Ban Ki-moon said it is possible we can trigger off massive, catastrophic problems, like huge waves slapping on the coast of Lagos. Do you know how much the population of Lagos is? And you now want to get tsunamis and ocean rise and push the whole of our coastal people as refugees. God forbid that this shall be our portion. Can I hear?
Amen.
Thank you. Yeah. So that's the apprehension, that this thing has now opened this Pandora's box, and we're seeing, the reality of what we're facing. And then the embarrassment as a Nigerian, is that one of our major contributions towards this climate change problem, which Adejuwon has rightly said in the nationally determined contributions, is gas flaring. Gas flaring. And that is so embarrassing to me. You know, I feel that all leaders that could have had a solution to it over the years should just apologize to the nation that we're flaring gas when we could have mini energy stations, mini generators there taking that gas and giving us electricity. We're flaring gas and we don't have electricity. So, you know, there's a lot of embarrassment, but hopefully our team will get on board and sign and ratify this thing and push us all globally. We're all coming together, and that's the brightest part of the whole thing. We're all coming together and we're having positive action to care for our creation, which is our life support system.
Thank you so much, Mr. Desmond Majekodunmi, an environmentalist and creation carer. Thank you for coming on this morning. And we've also been speaking with the former director, Department of Climate Change, Federal Ministry of Environment, Dr. Samuel Adejuwon. Thank you also for being here. Until sunrise, we'll go on another break, and we'll be back with the program.